Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and in today's video we're doing a 4-channel amplifier on this 2022 Toyota Corolla. Now in this install we're going to show you how to integrate that amplifier to the factory audio sound system. Let's get started. Before we dive into things, a couple of things to note. Our Corolla does not come equipped with JBL. This is the base trim, so there's no factory amplifier that we have to integrate into. If you have the factory amp, you're going to need the Amp Pro by pack. It's a little more expensive, but that's going to provide your signal output. They also have an amp bypass harness you'll need as well. In our case, we have the base audio sound system, so we just need some basic parts in order to integrate into that factory OEM head unit. Additionally, this install also applies to a 5-channel amp, so if you want more than just powering your interior speakers and want to instead also power a subwoofer, that works too. So let's head to the bench to show you the parts that we're going to need for the install. Here at the bench, the parts that we're using, the customer has chosen to go with, first and foremost, is the amplifier. Now they want this Kicker Key 200 watt RMS 4-channel amplifier. What's unique about the Key system, it has a built-in digital sound processor, or DSP, so it'll actually amplify and signal correct the factory head unit signal for the best outcome possible. Now, like I mentioned before, you don't have to do an amplifier like this. You can do a any 4-channel amplifier or a 5-channel, and we can recommend some in the description, where a 5-channel not only powers the interior speakers, but it can also power us up. We did a great one on a Tacoma. If you want to check that video out, we'll link it in the description. Now in our install, we're going to need the amplifier itself. Now we have a sheet of ABS plastic we've already cut and modified, a 12x12, that'll mount our Kicker Key, and we're going to be putting this underneath the driver's side front seat. To power this amplifier, we do need a wiring kit. It's this 12-gauge OFC wiring kit. You could probably use an 8-gauge as well, which we can link in the description. And our factory integration piece, there's 2 versions of the harness depending on how much you want to spend. This Red Wolf audio only T-harness, it's about between 10 and 15 bucks. We can link this in the description, and we can use this little dongle of wire to allow us to modify this instead of modifying the factory wiring, to pull signal from the factory radio, send it to our amplifier, and send the amplified signal back to our speakers through the use of this harness. Pack makes one as well that also includes your power connections in case you need the full build out as well. Lastly, here we have what we call 9-conductor cable, or in other words, it's all our speaker wiring plus a remote turn-on wiring, double shielded in this nice convenient cable, and we're going to need 2 runs of it, so this is a 20-foot run, which is perfect for our application. That's about it. So what we're going to do at this point of time is start mocking up where this amplifier will sit. Like I mentioned before, it's going underneath the driver's side front seat. It's already been used once. Usually has RCA ends, but those have been cut off. We're going to route our speaker outputs from the factory head unit into this harness. Our Kicker Key will do the signal correction and amplify it output, and these are the outputs that will send back up to the OEM harness, which will in turn send that signal to all our door speakers. We grabbed our 9-conductor speaker wire, we stripped some ends back here, and we have all our aftermarket wiring color strands. You're going to have 9 wires, 4 pairs, and 1 remote turn-on wire. We don't need 10 feet for each direction since we have 20 feet total. We cut them down to about 7. So we have 2 7-foot runs, and we labeled them as inputs and outputs. So this will be our input harness. This will bring the audio from the head unit. We'll send it into this harness, which is our high-level input harness. That'll connect into this end of the amplifier here. The amplifier itself will amplify that signal, and the output harness will send that amplified output to our speakers, and that'll go through this second set of wire, and that'll go all the way back to the harness, which will feed all our speakers. So that's our plan of attack. We have a lot of ends to solder up. We're going to be using solder and heat shrink here, but what we're going to do is also modify our little amp mount that we made. We like to zip tie the wires here and wrap them and make it look nice and tidy, and this will mount up underneath the seat so it's accessible, has plenty of room to breathe, but at the same time, if we need to go to it to make any maintenance needs, we'll be able to. Alright, so we have spent some time and got our amp rack all prepared. This is the input side, this is the output and power side. It's looking really nice and it'll fit really well up underneath. Just put some holes, twisted wire, got everything soldered up. Remember, 2 sets of speed wire because we cut that length in half. We have about a 7-foot run here and a 7-foot run here. And our input side we labeled as input. Obviously this is going to bring the signal from the factory radio and send it into the amplifier on this side. Output side, again, we twisted it, labeled this end output, and this will go back to the main harness to send that amplified signal to all our speakers. Additionally, here with our 12 gauge amplifier wiring kit, we actually went ahead and soldered our connections on there, and we're going to move some heat shrink up and over. Both reds and both blacks, you need to twist them together. It's all power. This will go to a factory grounding location, which we're going to create, and we'll show you how we're going to do that here in a moment. And this will go all the way to the battery. We're going to want our fuse holder as close to the battery as possible so we can protect this run of wire. Now, for our radio connections, our inputs and our outputs here. So we have our T-harness, our Red Wolf T-harness. We cut it in half, and we stripped both ends. The male end is going to be the input side, or the side pulling the signal from the factory radio and sending it to the input of our amplifier. The female end is going to be the output side. So our DSP'd output is going to go through this cable into this, and this will connect to the main harness, sending that amplified signal to all our door and dash speakers. This is the easiest way to do it. This prevents any need to cut the factory wiring whatsoever. Now, additionally here, what we're going to do is solder these connections like we did on our main harness. And the nice thing is, it's going to be color for color on both ends here. This input and this output. Now, this kicker key has a DC offset, which it'll actually turn itself on as soon as it detects DC current. And so we don't really need to run a remote wire on either side. We ran one in just in case, but we're not going to hook it up because the amplifier is smart enough. It'll turn itself on as needed. So what we're going to do is solder these ends on. We are done at the bench, and we can go ahead and get our amplifier rack installed. Alright, so we got everything done here. We're all soldered up and loomed and heat shrunk, and we're good to go. Now, you may be seeing yours is a little different than mine, and that's okay. We're actually running this in bi-amp mode, so we're using the outputs to power the tweeters and the mid-bass front speakers only. But in your case, if you're running this and powering all your speakers, it's literally color for the inputs and the outputs. It makes it really easy. Get it all soldered up. This end plugs into our factory radio. This end plugs into our main harness for our inputs and our outputs. We got our cables all soldered here. At this point of time, we can grab all of this here at the bench and head back to the car to get it installed. Alright, so we got our amplifier in there. It's looking great. It actually sits in there super well. Got everything nice and clean and zip tied. And we ran our power and ground through that slit. Power will go forward towards the battery. Ground comes out here. Now, because we don't have JBL, the JBL mounting location here on the seat crossbar, the threaded insert is unused, and so we're going to use that in our case for our ground, but we got to clean it up with a wire brush. So we'll show you how we'll do that in a minute. But our inputs and our outputs, we ran up and over along the heater channel, and it comes out here up underneath the carpet. Now at this point, we got to pop out our radio up above here so we can feed our inputs and outputs, our T-harness, up into the dash cavity to make our connections behind the factory OEM unit. Alright, so there is that threaded stud. We found a screw that would fit that factory mount location here, and with the paint all cleaned up so we have bare metal, we went ahead and mounted our ground for amplifier. Really, at this point, what we need to do is grab our T-harnesses here. Let's go ahead and pull the factory radio. We'll pull this up into the dash and make our connection. All right, so we're back here in the car. At this point, we need to pop the radio out to make our final amplifier connections. Now, to get this radio out, it's pretty straightforward and easy. There's some trim that needs to come out from up and around the radio. Just held in with clips on each corner. Just using your fingers. Put that carefully up there. Next, our heating and air controls need to pop out. Again, just held in with clips. Panel trim popping tool. Just carefully pop this out. Disconnect your harness. Next here are heating and air controls. Again, also held on with clips. We're just going to use our panel tool for leverage. Just kind of start popping it out here. Disconnect your hazard switch. Now this gives us great access to remove there's two 10 millimeters on each side, so 4 in total. Once you remove those, the radio will unsnap. Go ahead and give the radio a tug here. It should come on out. And that's now going to give us the space we need to pull our wire from the kick panel area up into the dash, and we're going to make our connections. Now, the main connection here is this black connection all the way on the passenger side. We're going to push in a little tab. That is our speaker wire connections, and it's the same design as the T-harness we built on the bench. Our T-harness plugs in here, and then the female end of our T-harness will go to the OEM plug, and that's it. Alright, so we've made our connections there and played it all back in. At this point of time, we get the radio back into the dash. With our hood open, now at this point of time, we need to pull our power wire through the firewall. Now, there's actually a grommet that's really difficult to see on this end, but we have a wire hanger already going through it. And what we're going to do is go inside to show you where you can easily access that hanger from the underside of the steering wheel, where we can pull our wire into the engine bay without having to pull the battery. So let's head inside to show you where that wire passes through. Underneath the steering column here, you can see our middle hanger here, and we just pierced right on through. We've already lubed it up a lot with some soap and water, but essentially here that goes through right to the other side, and that's where we fish it out from the other side. Prep here, we got our wire here, but we're gonna go ahead and pull it through the firewall. We went ahead and taped it really well there. Again, lots of lubricant. You want this to easily pass on through. So we're gonna add some more soap and water to this and pull it from the engine bay side. Okay, so we went ahead and pulled our wire all the way through. We split loomed it here. We're gonna do some zip tying, but we put both terminals right there on that stud, not the tightening stud. You could also do this one as well. Just don't do this one. This one's behind a factory fuse. So this one's right off the terminal. That worked great for us. We'll go ahead and put the fuses now in the fuse holders, clean up our wiring under the hood, and we'll be done under the hood. Got our amplifier all in. Now we'll just tack it down so it doesn't move around, but it's sandwiched in between those two spots there. It's not going anywhere. Looks really nice. Now the next thing we need to do with our amplifier is go ahead and do the auto DSP. What I'm going to do is throw on the instructions on the screen here, but basically it's a quick summary. Keep your gains all the way down, plug in the mic, put the mic on top of the headrest. Go ahead and play some peak noise through the speakers, shut all the doors, turn it up to a louder than comfortable volume, let it go through its cycle. It could be 5 to 8 minutes, and then once that's all done, it'll play a chime when it's all tuned, and there you go, and that's it. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and once we've done that, we'll set our gains. All right, so we went ahead and set up our audio EQ. That's all done. It's sounding fantastic. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. I'll try to add as much information in the description as possible for you. Also, if you want to see an amp and sub on this generation Corolla, we'll link that video also in the description for you. If you like any of the parts that we use, we'll link them in the description as well. And be sure to hit the like button if you liked what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe. We post great content on the channel all the time. We'll see you in the next video.